Jason Cole had grown used to the echo of silence that filled his modest two-bedroom home. Since the tragic death of his wife 3 years ago, the once lively walls had grown quiet, save for the occasional laughter of his 10-year-old son Alex. Life had become a pattern of early mornings, long hours at the warehouse, and quiet evenings spent helping with homework or microwaving dinners. He was a single dad doing his best, struggling some days, surviving others, but always pushing forward for his son's sake. It was a cold, rainy Wednesday evening in early spring when something unexpected interrupted Jason's routine. As he pulled into the driveway, the rain hammered down in thick sheets, blurring the windshield and soaking the gravel beneath his boots as he stepped out of the truck. He rushed toward the porch with his hoodie pulled over his head, but just as he reached the steps, he heard it. A faint sound like a whimper. He stopped, heart suddenly alert, listening again. The noise came again, a soft, muffled cry. Jason turned, scanning the shadows around his porch. There, huddled against the wooden railing beneath the narrow awning, were 2 small girls. They were soaked to the skin, their thin coats clinging to their frail bodies, long hair plastered to their faces. One of them was clutching a torn pink backpack, while the other had a small stuffed bunny gripped tightly in her hand. Their eyes, wide and glistening, locked with his. "What the?" Jason breathed, crouching down. "Hey, are you okay? Where are your parents?" Neither girl spoke at first. They only clung to each other tighter. Jason's heart twisted at the sight. He could see they were no older than 6. Cold, scared, and obviously abandoned. "My name's Jason," he said gently, lowering his voice. "It's all right. You're safe now. Can I help you?" Finally, one of the girls opened her mouth. "She left us here," she whispered. "Ooh," Jason asked. "Our stepmom," the other replied, her voice trembling. She said someone nice would find us." Jason's breath caught. He could barely process it. Someone had left these 2 little girls on his porch in the rain. He quickly ushered them inside, wrapping them in towels and turning up the heat. He gave them dry clothes, Alex's old pajamas, and set out soup, though they barely touched it. They were too nervous to eat, their eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. They sat close together on the couch, never letting go of each other. After making sure they were warm and dry, Jason called the police. Officers arrived within minutes, followed shortly by a Child Protective Services caseworker. The girls were shy, hesitant, and struggled to speak. Eventually, they revealed their names, Emma and Lily, and confirmed they were 6 years old. Their stepmother had told them they were going for a ride, and when she stopped in front of Jason's house, she told them to wait on the porch because someone kind lived there. Then she drove off and never came back. The caseworker explained that the girls had been placed in temporary care with their stepmother after their biological father was arrested on domestic charges. No other relatives had stepped forward, and now the stepmother had disappeared. No one had reported the girls missing. Jason sat quietly as the information sank in. These children had been tossed aside like trash, left to fend for themselves in the rain. On his porch, "I can place them in an emergency shelter tonight," the caseworker offered. "Unless you're willing to let them stay here until we find a placement." Jason didn't hesitate. "They can stay here," he said. "No kid should go through this." He wasn't sure why he said it so quickly. He already had enough on his plate: late nights, bills piling up, a son to raise. But there was something in the way the girls had clung to each other, the hollow fear in their eyes. Something familiar. He remembered when Alex had first cried himself to sleep after his mother's death. He remembered the helplessness in his own heart. Jason set up the pull-out couch for them that night. They clung to each other under a pile of warm blankets. As he turned out the light and stepped away, he heard a small voice behind him. "Thank you, Mr. Jason." He paused in the hallway, heart swelling. "You're welcome, sweetheart," he whispered. That night, Jason lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His thoughts spun around the 2 little strangers now sleeping under his roof. He wondered what they'd been through, who they'd become if they had no one to care for them. His heart ached with the weight of their reality. What kind of world leaves children out in the cold, hoping a stranger will be kind? In the days to come, he would tell himself it was only temporary, that someone else, someone better equipped, would eventually step in. But that night, something deep inside Jason shifted. He didn't know it yet, but everything in his life was about to change. And it all started with two scared little girls, left in the rain. The days that followed were a whirlwind of unexpected chaos, tender moments, and silent healing. Jason's once quiet home was now alive with noise, jiggles, questions, the pitter-patter of small feet, and the occasional meltdown over cereal flavors or mismatched socks. Emma and Lily were still adjusting, cautious in their own ways, yet slowly warming to the space around them. The first night had been the hardest. Both girls refused to sleep unless the light in the hallway stayed on, and Jason checked the locks on the doors twice. But by the third night, they had started to call his small house home, even if they still stumbled when saying it aloud. Jason had contacted the caseworker again, who confirmed that no relatives had come forward yet, and that their stepmother remained untraceable. "There's a real possibility this could take a while," she'd warned. Jason nodded, not quite sure how he felt about that. A part of him hoped someone would come forward who could love and care for them fully. But another part, the part that had watched Lily fall asleep holding his finger, or heard Emma whisper, "Good night," through the hallway, was terrified of the thought of letting them go. Mornings became a dance of responsibility and love. Jason would wake early to prepare lunchboxes, grilled cheese sandwiches cut into heart shapes, and tiny cartons of juice. He'd struggle to braid Lily's hair as she giggled at his uneven technique and helped Emma zip up her purple backpack. Alex, now unofficially promoted to Big Brother, began walking them to the school bus with pride. Though Jason had once worried about how Alex would handle the shift, his son had stepped up in a way that amazed him. He read to them, played board games, and even taught them how to play Mario Kart. Though he always let them win, the girls were opposites in many ways. Emma was the quieter one, gentle and thoughtful. She often clung to her sketch pad, drawing pictures of families and homes with bright blue skies. Lily, on the other hand, was loud, funny, and impulsive, constantly climbing furniture or asking Jason 37 questions before breakfast. But their bond was unshakable. Wherever one went, the other followed. At night, they insisted on sleeping in the same bed and refused to close their bedroom door. Their trauma still lingered, manifesting in nightmares, jumpiness at loud noises, or fear when someone raised their voice. But every day they healed, slowly, gently, with Jason there to guide them. One evening, after a long day at work and an exhausting trip to the grocery store with all three kids, Jason collapsed on the couch. The girls climbed up beside him, each holding a piece of paper. "We made you this," Emma said, handing him a crayon-drawn picture. It showed a stick-figure family: Jason, Alex, Emma, and Lily, all holding hands beneath a smiling sun. "You're in the middle because you hold us all together," Lily said proudly. Jason stared at the drawing, his heart tightening in his chest. It wasn't just a cute drawing. It was a reflection of something deeper, something real forming between them. He pulled both girls into a tight hug, holding them close. "Thank you," he whispered. "This means the world to me." That night, after putting them to bed and checking on Alex, Jason sat at the kitchen table alone. Bills sat in one corner, school permission slips in another. His life had shifted so dramatically in such a short time. He hadn't signed up for this, not really. He was a man barely making ends meet, working long hours, trying to give his son a decent life. And now he was raising two more children who had already seen too much pain for their age. It should have been overwhelming. It was overwhelming. But it also felt right. He reached out to a family therapist, someone who could help the girls work through their trauma. He bought nightlights shaped like stars and painted the girls' bedroom a soft lavender. He signed them up for dance classes, something their school counselor recommended. And though the cost pinched his savings, their glowing smiles after their first class made every penny worth it. One Sunday morning, Jason found himself sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the girls draw chalk rainbows on the sidewalk while Alex helped Lily find her lost blue crayon. A neighbor walked by and paused. "Didn't know you had daughters now," she said kindly. Jason smiled. "Didn't either, until they found me." The woman chuckled and kept walking, but the words lingered. Until they found me. He hadn't just taken in 2 little girls. He had been chosen by them in the strangest twist of fate. They had been abandoned on his porch. Out of all the homes in the world, they'd ended up at his door. Later that evening, as Jason tucked the girls in, Emma sat up suddenly. "Do we have to leave someday?" she asked quietly, her big brown eyes filled with worry. "Will someone come take us?" Jason hesitated, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. "Right now you're with me. And as long as you're here, I'll take care of you. Okay?" Emma nodded slowly. Lily reached out and hugged his arm. "We want to stay forever," she said softly. Jason kissed the tops of their heads, his voice choked with emotion. "Forever sounds just fine to me." That night, the house wasn't just filled with noise. It was filled with belonging. And for the first time in years, Jason didn't just feel like a man surviving. He felt like a father building something extraordinary. Months passed, and the house that once echoed with silence now pulsed with warmth and life. Jason had developed a rhythm with the girls. School drop-offs, dinner together at the table, story time and bedtime hugs. What began as a temporary arrangement had quietly transformed into something more sacred. Jason had gone from being the stranger who opened his door to a man who couldn't imagine his life without Emma and Lily in it. They weren't just guests in his home anymore. They were his daughters in every way but on paper. But that fragile peace shattered one morning when Jason received a call from the Child Protective Services office. The voice on the other end was kind but cautious, choosing her words carefully. "Jason, I wanted to let you know the girl's biological father has filed a motion for custody. He's still incarcerated, but he's working through a family attorney. Apparently, his sister, your girl's aunt, is willing to take them." Jason stood frozen in the kitchen, the eggs on the stove beginning to burn as the weight of the news hit him like a punch to the chest. "But they don't even know her," he said, his voice shaking. "They've never mentioned an aunt. They've never even asked for their dad." "I understand," the caseworker replied gently, "but legally, he still has rights, and if the aunt can demonstrate that she's a fit guardian, a judge could decide in her favor." Jason hung up the phone, heart pounding, stomach hollow. That evening, after the kids were in bed and the house had grown quiet, Jason sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, scribbling notes, worries, and numbers. He wasn't a wealthy man. His savings were thin. Lawyers weren't cheap, and custody battles were emotionally exhausting. But none of that mattered. What mattered were the 2 girls sleeping in the bedroom down the hall, the ones who had started calling him Daddy when no one was listening, who drew family portraits with his name written above theirs in hearts. He picked up the phone and called a lawyer. The weeks that followed were filled with paperwork, meetings, and a crash course in family law. Jason learned that the girl's aunt lived 3 states away and hadn't seen them in nearly 2 years. Her interest only surfaced after their father reached out from prison. Jason suspected it was more obligation than genuine concern. But that didn't make the threat any less real. Emma and Lily, unaware of the looming legal battle, continued to flourish. Their grades were improving. They were making friends. They laughed more. They called him Dad, openly now, even in front of strangers. But Jason's heart tightened each time they said it, knowing that someone out there was trying to take them away. When court day finally arrived, Jason dressed in his best suit and held the girl's picture in his coat pocket, a drawing they had made of their forever family. His lawyer presented his case. The girls had found stability in Jason's home, were thriving under his care, and had developed a bond that could not be manufactured overnight. Teachers, neighbors, even the family therapist testified on his behalf. Each one painted a picture of a loving, nurturing environment, one where the girls were safe, happy, and loved. Then the aunt took the stand. She seemed kind enough, well-dressed, and soft-spoken. She told the judge that she hadn't known the full situation, that she regretted not stepping in sooner. "But they're my blood," she said. "They deserve to be with family." Jason's lawyer stood up after that and said, "Your Honor, with all due respect, family is not just blood. Family is who shows up when no one else does." In a quiet moment during a break, Jason sat alone on a bench outside the courtroom. He stared at the tiled floor, questioning if he was enough. What if the judge didn't see what he saw? What if the law chose biology over love? A small voice snapped him back to reality. It was Emma standing there in her school dress, holding her stuffed bunny. She must have slipped away from the waiting room. "Are we going away?" she asked, her big eyes full of fear. Jason knelt beside her, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know yet, sweetie, but I'm fighting for you, with everything I have." She leaned in and whispered, "We want to stay with you, Daddy." In that moment, Jason felt something shift inside him, an unshakable certainty. Win or lose, these girls were already his. No judge or court could take away what they had built. The final verdict came a week later. The judge, after careful deliberation, ruled in Jason's favor. He was granted full legal guardianship of Emma and Lily. The courtroom was silent as Jason's name was declared their legal guardian. But in his heart, there was a celebration louder than any he had ever known. Tears welled in his eyes as he hugged his lawyer, then rushed outside to tell the girls. Alex, standing beside them, gave a triumphant fist pump. Lily squealed, and Emma clung to him with all her might. "So we're staying?" Lily asked breathlessly.
"We're a family,"
Jason said. "No one's changing that." That night, after pizza and chocolate milk in celebration, Jason tucked the girls into bed. As he turned to leave the room, Emma called out to him, "Daddy." He paused in the doorway. "Thanks for choosing us." Jason smiled through tears. "You chose me first." And in the quiet darkness, under the soft hum of a nightlight, Jason Cole finally felt something he hadn't in years. Not just peace, but purpose. He hadn't just won a case. He had found his family. 2 years had passed since the judge had ruled in Jason's favor, granting him full guardianship of Emma and Lily. Those 2 years had brought more than just birthdays, scraped knee, and dance recitals. They had transformed a man who once believed his world ended, with the loss of his wife, into a father who now woke up each day with a full heart. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still nights when Lily woke crying from dreams she didn't remember, or days when Emma grew quiet at the mention of family trees in school. But slowly, the cracks in their hearts had filled with the kind of love that only time, patience, and presence could provide. Jason had become a different man. He no longer rushed through life in survival mode. Instead, he became the dad who packed hand-written notes into lunchboxes, who volunteered for school field trips, who tried salars and failed to braid hair evenly, but never stopped trying. He found joy in the chaos. Juice spilled on freshly folded laundry, glitter mysteriously appearing in his truck, dance parties in the living room on Friday nights. His once quiet house had turned into a home full of noise, color, and joy. Emma and Lily were now 8, their bond with Jason and Alex stronger than ever. Alex had matured into the role of big brother naturally, helping with homework, defending them from playground bullies, and begrudgingly playing dolls when begged to. They called Jason Dad with ease now, and when someone asked them about their family, they didn't hesitate. "We're the Cole family," they'd say proudly. "We got each other forever." The transformation in the girls was undeniable. Emma, once so quiet and fearful, had become a thoughtful and expressive child with a love for drawing and writing stories. She filled journals with tales of brave girls and their heroic dads. Lily remained the spark, the loudest laugh, the first to dance, the one who made every room brighter. And though she still had days when shadows from her past crept in, she had learned to face them with courage and trust in the people who surrounded her. On a crisp Saturday morning, the family gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. Pancakes shaped like animals, thanks to Jason's growing but questionable cooking creativity. As the girls chattered about an upcoming school talent show, Jason noticed something quietly powerful. These weren't just children who had found a new life. They were children he had helped bring back to life. He had witnessed their first steps into healing, and now he was watching them run. Later that day, as Jason was putting away laundry, he found one of Emma's drawings on the floor. It showed the four of them standing in front of their house, surrounded by hearts and the words, "My everyday miracle." At the bottom, in her small, neat handwriting, she had written, "Sometimes, miracles don't look like magic. Sometimes, they look like a dad who showed up." Jason sat on the edge of his bed, holding the drawing in his lap. The weight of those words filled his chest. He had once believed he was rescuing them. But the truth was, they had saved him too. After his wife's death, he had been broken in ways no one could see. He had simply gone through the motions of life, doing what he had to for Alex, but empty inside. The girls had brought light back into that darkness. They had taught him to laugh again, to hope again, to live again. The next weekend, they celebrated Father's Day. The girls woke him up early with a clumsy breakfast in bed. Toast that was more burnt than golden, eggs that were more shell than yolk. But it was perfect. They wore handmade crowns that read, "Fade one day, D," and presented him with cards covered in stickers and glitter. Alex gifted him a framed photo of all four of them, taken on a camping trip the year before. Underneath it, he had engraved, "Our family started with love, not blood." Jason couldn't speak for a long moment. He simply reached out and pulled all three of his children into his arms. No words could capture what his heart felt. That day, they had a picnic at the park, played board games on the porch, and ended the night with a movie snuggled together on the couch under one big blanket. As the credits rolled and the kids began to drift off to sleep, Jason looked around the room. Alex had one arm around Lily, who was half asleep with popcorn in her lap. Emma was curled up against Jason's chest, breathing softly. In that moment, surrounded by the soft hum of the TV and the warmth of the three people who now made his life whole, Jason felt peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from things being easy, but the kind that comes from knowing you did something right. That you showed up when it mattered. That you made a difference. That you loved with everything you had. Life would still throw curveballs. There would be scraped knees, heartbreaks, tough teenage years, and more nights spent worrying. But through it all, Jason knew they would face it together. They weren't bound by blood, but by something stronger, by choice, by love. By the quiet miracle that happened the night two little girls were left on his porch in the rain. Years from now, when people asked how their family came to be, Jason wouldn't speak about court papers or custody battles. He'd talk about laughter over pancakes, dance parties in the kitchen, and the moment a scared little girl called him Daddy, and meant it. Because that was when the miracle truly began. And every single day since, he had lived in it.